Hello, and welcome to another episode of eDiscovery Chicks, the podcast about all things eDiscovery and legal tech. Hosted by two gals who have a little bit of FOMO and a little bit of JOMO about not being at Legal Week. We're your hosts. That's Bree.
And that's Angie. School me on Jomo?
Joy of missing out.
Yes, that was a very, old moment that I just had.
No, you looked at
Jomo.
me like I'd said something just like utterly repugnant.
I'm like, "What are we talking about, Jomo?"
You're like, ugh.
Super productive, by the way, when everybody else is gone.
Oh my God,
When
it's so nice.
Yeah.
It's like, well, my whole
Well
team's out, so I guess I'll just like get cracking. Nobody needs me. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, today we are gonna be talking about quarterly business reviews, which might hopefully not put you to sleep with the sound of it.
No, we'll make
Um,
it entertaining. We promise.
yes, we will. Quarterly business reviews, if you're not familiar with them, sometimes they're referred to as QBRs. You might hear them if they're being hosted, including a vendor or legal service provider, as a customer business review or a CBR, or sometimes they're just an internal business review. Business review is an inevitable part of corporate life. It's a strategic meeting between stakeholders, often a client and a vendor or internal teams are involved. They're really designed to review performance over the last quarter or since the last time that you met, evaluate key metrics, discuss risks or gaps that you see evident, and plan improvements or opportunities for the next quarter or until you decide to meet again. Every company does it a little bit different, and every team does it a little bit different. But the point of a business review is to enable the team to walk away with highlights and action items. So, we're going to roast the fake business review today and then give you a way to glow up one that actually changes what happens next time. But before we get to that, Angie, we talked about our JOMO and our FOMO now that we've defined what those are. What else is going on in your world?
Oof. Well, you know what? I put my Aura ring back on. We went on a break. We took a break for a few months, and I was starting to feel like I was maybe a little bit dysregulated, so I put it back on, and woof, the feedback is rough.
You were a little bit mad that your Aura Ring was bossing you around and maybe being a little judgmental the last time I heard.
I know. And so I took a little bit of a break. I was like, listen, I've got what I need from this. I know, when I need to go to bed or whatever. But it turns out I really need a little bit more shame in my life to make me actually do it. Like last night, I was sitting there and I was listening to my audiobook and just scrolling random things on my phone. And I was like, you know what? I should go to bed because my Aura ring is going to be very mad at me in the morning if I don't go to bed right now. So I feel like that's healthy. I don't know. Maybe I need more adult supervision.
Oh my gosh.
What's new
Um,
with you?
I'm like sitting here trying to think how I would be handling the situation. I hate all of the things because I don't like shame. I put enough shame to myself, I guess, or I inflict it upon myself. And it makes me feel like I'm never good enough. I'm sitting here in my current state of trying to get over this cold situation that I've been dealing with for the last week and a half or so.
Yeah, that thing will
And
not let go. It's got its
I know it
claws in
likes
you.
me. It's like the Mucinex commercial. It's like they have a hotel up there. They're
Like,
like
this is
moved in happily.
comfy.
Yeah. We have like the good food, the good
This is
drugs. I don't know what's
plush.
happening. I think when you're sick, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Like, oh my God, there's all this stuff I want to be doing that I can't be doing because my body's telling me I need to slow down. But that's how I feel when I always have one of those like Fitbits or the Oura Ring or whatever. It's like, oh my God, I need to always be doing something more. And it makes me feel like I'm not good enough. I don't hate that, Angie.
I mean, I don't always listen to it. Like today, it's like that you need to rest. And you know what I'm going to do? In like 2 hours, I'm going to go on a 10-mile run. And I'm like, that was not the best choice. And I'll be like, I know, but I'm going to be drinking tomorrow night. And so I had to go on my run today. And it's going to be like, that also wasn't the best choice. And I'll be like, for whom?
Right. Define best. Other than the whole physical meltdown of our our immune systems over here at the Murphy household, We are just kind of busting our way into spring in Houston, and that brings the rodeo, which is super exciting. But the thing that gets me really excited is the fair food. And
Oh my
so,
god.
yes.
Yes.
And I know we've had some conversations about our favorite fair foods. There's a show in Houston called Eat Like a Local, and it's really cool because they'll go out and find all the best restaurants and whatever. Well, they're at the rodeo this weekend, and everybody that they interviewed were like, "I love corn dogs." And I'm like,
They're
"That's
my
Angie.
people.
That's Angie and me's vibe." You went to a rodeo last year,
Oh,
didn't
I go to
you?
rodeo every year.
When is y'all's rodeo again?
Red Bluff, the Red Bluff Roundup.
What month?
It's April.
Oh, is it April?
Um, but I heard somebody describe corn dogs once as redneck beef Wellington. And
That is amazing.
I, like, can't get it out of my brain. Now I'm like, "No, that is 100% what it is." But yes, a rodeo corn dog, like, there is nothing better in the world. I look forward to them for so long.
Yeah.
I saw this thing on Instagram about, a place in New York where you can go and you'll give, like, vanilla soft serve, and then they dip it in butter and then sprinkle
Oh
fleur de sel
gosh.
on top, and I was
Oh.
like, I had a dream about it last night, bro. I literally had a dream about it.
It's kinda like a fancy Dairy Queen. Do y'all have
And
Dairy Queens
oh,
where you are?
yeah.
Okay. I'm like,
Oh,
I didn't know if
yeah.
that was a Southern thing or not.
No, they're few and far between in, like,
Mhm.
Seattle proper, but, oh my god, a blizzard? Like,
Yeah,
oh, elite.
for real. But, they used to do those, like, chocolate dunking they probably still do, the little
Oh,
cone where they dunk in
yeah.
the chocolate. That's kind of like what that is, but way fancier.
Yeah,
I
they're
like
just like,
that.
"Here's some butter."
That's kind of my style. I can get into that.
I love it. There's an episode of Parks and Rec where Andy goes, "Maybe butter's my favorite food." And I'm like, "Maybe. It does make everything better."
Legit.
Like, well, okay, I guess we should talk about QBRs/CBRs. We really think that they shouldn't just be like a recap. It should also be more of a health check, a vibe check, and a decision meeting under the envelope of a review. So, if done right, during these QBRs, you can, and I'm going to call them QBRs because it's like the vernacular that I use, but just know that when I say that, I mean any type of business review, whether it's quarterly or customer or annual, whatever. So, done right, a QBR can set direction for your next time interval, whether that's a quarter or a year or whatever. You name your trade offs what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, and it will reduce surprises. I mean, there's nothing worse than a relationship going wrong and you had no idea it was going wrong until they break up with
Totally.
you.
Mm.
Never, certainly never happened to me.
Ugh, yeah. I mean, I just heard about it from other people.
I don't know. But on the other hand, QBR done wrong is really just a waste of an hour. It's performance theater. It's a waste of brain space. And it's just kind of nobody gets anything out of it. So it's just not worth anybody's time or effort. So I highlight those two differences. What can happen if you do them right? What can happen if you do them wrong? Because to highlight why QBRs matter, because they're one of the only situations where you are allowed or even expected to step out of execution mode and actually decide what's going well, what's going wrong, and what matters next.
A QBR or CBR, whatever, I think I'll probably fall in line with QBR just so we can be consistent. But a business review in any shape or form is a low drama moment to reallocate risks and change direction. If we miss that window, all the change still comes. It's just super loud and messy with more finger pointing. So you do not want that. So today we are going to talk about how to get the most of your QBRs through collaboration and the identification of risks, metrics, and trends. And as promised, we'll give you takeaways to glow up your QBRs. So if you've ever walked out of a QBR thinking, well, that happened, then this one's for you.
Oh my God. Okay, so let's talk about some metrics because you're going to want to come to a QBR with numbers or you're going to want to come expecting some numbers. So most QBRs will maybe in the eDiscovery space anyway, will probably include some or all of the following. Your active legal holds, your non-responsive or unresponsive custodians. Check on them, make sure they haven't died. I'm kidding.
Whoa,
Whoa,
it's
we got
morbid.
morbid. Data volumes that have been processed, review throughput, hosting utilization, number of matters, turnaround times for collections or productions, cost trends, vendor or legal service analysis. Anything along those lines is something that you might want to include in an eDiscovery QBR. But again, the most important part isn't necessarily the numbers themselves, it's the why behind them. Why did data volumes spike this quarter? Why are messaging platforms like Teams or Slack increasing? Why are reviews taking longer? Because are cases more complex? Is it our reviewers? What's the root cause?
And what about these KPIs? I mean, I don't know if you've ever used the terminology or heard it. I've heard it in some places I've worked, not heard it other places that I've worked. You are laughing at me right now. Like, is this something that you're familiar with?
Well, I'm laughing because when I was at the law firm, they tried to roll this out, and it came from like upper management at the law firm, like our managing partners and stuff, and all the associates were like, Jesus Christ, all we're trying to do is hit our billables. We don't care about your KPIs. We are worked to the bone. Get your KPIs out of here. But then when I went over to the in-house and I was on the customer side of that relationship, I was like, I very much care about KPIs. So
But I
we've had
didn't.
an on again, off again relationship.
Well, I agree. I mean, I've heard KPIs. I did not hear it in the law firm's setting, so you must have been much more progressive than I was. My firms were, but I have heard it in the corporate setting. So perhaps, depending on where you are in the world, this might be something that comes into your purview or not. But key performance indicators, KPIs, in legal operations, they're like strategic metrics that are used to measure a legal department's efficiency, financial performance, their overall value to the business. Effective KPIs align legal activities with broader corporate goals, such as cost reduction or a faster deal execution, which is likely why I've heard of this more from the corporate setting because you're trying to mirror what the executive level is kind of rolling out for everyone.
Right.
And
They don't think
actually,
legal is a special little snowflake the same way legal thinks legal is a
I
special little
mean,
snowflake.
we are special though. Uh, Actually, they're really kind of the same thing as metrics. It's just kind of putting them together in a formal suit and making a process out of them, I guess. But it's important to look beyond the trees to see the entire forest. KPIs must expand past e-discovery and legal ops, even though we are very special, to, like I said, mirror the goals of the entire organization. So, some examples of that might be financial. Maybe we're looking at legal spend as a percentage of overall revenue. Maybe we're looking at what we budgeted versus what we actually spent. Maybe we're looking at things like what are we spending internally on our resources and what are we spending externally? What are those ratios? And what's the cost effectiveness of going outside versus using our internal resources? Maybe we want to have some sort of average cost per matter. How many matters do we have coming in? How many legal holds do we have active? What is the average cost for us? How can we combine those internal and external costs to determine the total financial aspect of resolving those individual cases? And how can we be more efficient there and save money? Billing, assessment to how many matters are actually being charged back to internal clients. Like we know it's costing us something, who's actually paying it? Is it charging back to the unit that's responsible for whatever that litigation might be? So, those are some examples of some financial KPIs. You might have some things that are more operational, like contract cycle time, the total duration from contract initiation to the final execution. Maybe we reduce this, which would accelerate business revenue. Maybe we want to track things like the types of matters or the volume of matters to determine, how complex are the things that we're handling and how we're handling them. Response and resolution time. Maybe we want to measure how quickly the legal team is acknowledging requests and completing them. And we could highlight some potential bottlenecks in that analysis.
Oh, no, I
Maybe
don't want that kind of shame.
Maybe we want to look at resource utilization, the percentage of time that we're spending on high value legal work versus administrative tasks. Those are a couple ideas in terms of operational KPIs. Risks, of course, are always something that an organization is wanting to assess. So maybe we're looking at things along the lines of our litigation success rate. We're measuring the percentage of favorable outcomes and disputes, including settlements and wins and losses. Maybe we have a compliance adherence rate, the percentage of contracts or processes that follow internal policies and regulatory requirements. Maybe we even care about our internal client satisfaction. I think that's something I oftentimes forgot when I was in a corporate setting, that I have my own internal clients and I want them to be satisfied with the legal hold process and the things that they have to do to help me help them, and understand how those internal stakeholders are perceiving legal's responsiveness and the value of legal to the organization. Maybe we want to look at legal technology and the adoption rate. It monitors the percentage of the team actively using automated tools or self service templates, for example.
Oh my god, are
Um,
QBRs like an Aura ring for your legal team?
oh my God. Here we go. So, so those are some ideas of KPIs. You don't have to call them KPIs. And maybe there's just some things, if you're not doing them today, would add value, bring value to your team as you're planning for the future and you're talking through your different policies and processes. Things to keep in mind, there are likely other areas to be considered, like audit and controls and compliance. So when we're talking about who to involve in these types of meetings, it might make sense to involve folks from those different areas, because you want to make sure when you're talking about things like internal client satisfaction, just for an example, that the audits and controls and compliance are being reflected throughout your organization, that what you've set up is actually being what is followed, so that not only is it defensible, but it's also in line with what your business objectives are. Also, you want to make sure that any KPIs or metrics that you set up align with the corporate strategy from the executive level. I think we've kind of mentioned that a little bit at the very beginning of this. But we want to make sure that every metric directly supports a specific business objective. Keep it simple. Focus on like 3 to 5 core KPIs to avoid data overload and to ensure clarity. These, I think, are really good things to keep in mind for a QBR, but also just from a personal standpoint. And Angie, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this too. It's really important to have these for yourself, because they help you as you're doing like your annual evaluation of yourself, or maybe you do quarterly, whatever. And you're talking to your boss, you're talking to your executives, and you're like, this is the value I brought forth, and here's the things I accomplished, and this is why I deserve $1 million in a raise. Um, these are those types of things and metrics that you can set not only for your team, but for yourself as an individual performer.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I do this for myself literally every quarter. And I have in my little task keeping app, I have my quarterly goals or whatever, and those are essentially just KPIs, right? So it's, how many meetings did I have? How many client interfaces did I have? How many thought leadership pieces did I publish? Um, all of that kind of how many big projects did I, like, make meaningful headway on, and what did that headway look like? So, yeah, I think that they're super important. I mean, I can't remember what I did last Tuesday, right? But if I'm keeping track of it somewhere, then when the time comes where somebody is asking me how I'm using my time, well, I've got an answer.
Very smart.
I know that metrics, obviously are a big part of the conversation, but let's talk about who's taking part in that conversation. Who has a seat at the table in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, QBRs are the best time for the team to collaborate. That's what you're all there for. And you can pull in your internal and external stakeholders. So this could mean that joined by folks in your IT department, like maybe your application administrators, for example, your CISO, or someone from data security who helps with internal investigations. Maybe you're pulling in somebody from HR who's helping with employee matters. Maybe compliance or risk are folks that need to be involved to help assess policies or information governance controls. Records custodians, privacy or data governance. I mean, those are other areas of people within an organization who are affected by a legal hold and data on legal hold. Perfect time to bring in your vendors, your legal service providers, your internal and external legal counsel, legal ops, eDiscovery. Anybody who's really touching the business of legal in terms of eDiscovery should be at the seat of the table. And that is a big scope. And we've talked about that all the time when we were talking about cross collaboration. eDiscovery is like this little nucleus in the middle of a cell, but all around it are so many things that touch it, right?
Oh my god, high school biology just came screaming back to me when you said
That might be
that.
the only thing I remember from biology.
It's more than I
So
can say. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and I think maybe the connective tissue between all these different groups is that everybody's really you wanna get all these people because they all have areas of specialty, and you want everybody at the table looking at the same information together. So, just a couple of things that you might consider incorporating into your QBR are assessing the overlap. We've mentioned a bunch of departments that could very well operate in a very siloed type of environment, but it's so much better to work collaboratively. So maybe you want to figure out where you're involved with each other's processes and where are the bottlenecks, the inefficiencies, who's making whose life more difficult, and how can you remedy that? What policies should be considered? Should there be an audit? Should we revise our retention period or our data retention schedule? That kind of stuff. And then your legal hold. No matter what any unit in the organization has to do, they will always touch data. And so the first question to be asked should be, what's on legal hold? What's that process like? Is it documented? Are there workflows that are established? How have we considered that in our company policies? Because legal holds are kind of intrusive, you're locking data down, you're telling people to operate slightly differently. And so you want to do that in a way that's defensible, but also allows the business to keep running. And then also, you might want to talk about costs. All these organizations, they've all got budgets, they've all got costs. And you want to figure out, where your legal tech and business objectives might be able to share costs and resources. So, for example, when I was at Redfin, one of the things that we did was upgrade our Slack instance from just the free version to the enterprise version. And the budget for that, I was able to team up with folks from IT and information security because they also wanted us to upgrade. Their reasons were different, but we all had the same end goal. And when it came time to actually upgrade our Slack license, those legal, information security, and IT shared the budget for doing it because we all wanted it. So it's a great example of it wasn't in the context of a QBR, unfortunately, but it was just an instance of cross organizational collaboration to spread the costs out.
Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect use of a QBR is to sit down and to compare tools. What tools are you using in data security for internal investigations versus what tools are your privacy folks using to fulfill DSARs versus what tools is your HR team using to review email versus what's eDiscovery and legal doing? When we all sit down and compare notes and compare the tools that we're utilizing and depending on every day, we find a lot of overlap. We find places to share budgets. We find, hey, if data security is going to be using this and eDiscovery needs this, then let's split it in terms of budget. And then we can get more and we'll be able to, utilize AI in ways that we didn't think was possible before because we didn't have the budget for it, for example. So perfect utilization of a QBR. Another good utilization for QBR is taking the time to sit down together and talk about expansive workflows. What happens when a legal matter comes in? All the way to fruition, all the way to when there's change in your organization. And having those conversations with folks outside of your immediate business unit helps you to understand the perspective of changes that might need to happen in your own process. What happens when somebody on legal hold leaves the organization? If you don't know the answer to that question, you need to have a larger conversation that involves more than just legal and e-discovery, most likely. Another thing that it's good to sit down with all the folks that we talked about earlier at the QBR. It's good to analyze where are there stopgaps in here where we're unclear who's responsible for what. And this is also another very corporate acronym that I have become familiar with called RACI. It
I
stands
love
for, oh
RACI.
my God, I knew you would love RACI. Um, it stands for R is responsible, A accountable, C consulted, and I is informed. So the idea is that you kind of assign different roles to the people in your organization that need to be concerned about certain things. So the responsible party might be the doer. I might be the person who's responsible for getting out the legal hold. The owner of it might be the general counsel. And that's the person who's ultimately going to answer, for example. Do you want to? I know that you love RACI, Angie. So do you want to give us a great example of how you found it to be helpful?
Oh, yeah, I will. Okay, so let me finish the C and the I, and then I'll give you sort of a good use case for this. So the C stands for consulted, and that's, people giving input, subject matter experts or stakeholders whose opinions you're going to need to seek. throughout whatever the project is. And then informed is letter I, obviously. And that is who needs to be updated. The people who need to be kept in the loop on progress or decisions. Sometimes, while the work is ongoing at key milestones or, maybe after the project is finished. That's kind of a one-way communication. So like a good example for this would be when we would put legal holds in place. The legal ops person was the responsible party, the doer. They were the person who actually got the legal hold, set up. Accountable, the owner. I mean, that was me. I was the lawyer in charge of ensuring that legal holds got placed at the right time and in the right way and correctly scoped. Consulted, sometimes if we had trickier data sources, it might be our engineering team or our IT team. Or if there were issues with scoping or, trying to figure out what data sources we needed to target, that might have been our outside counsel. So it can look different on different matters. And then informed or updated, that would be my general counsel, my vice president of legal. And every quarter, I would give them a QBR, basically, where I would tell them how many legal holds we had implemented and like what the turnaround time was between triggering event and legal hold instituted. So, in this context, responsible, legal ops, accountable, the lawyer, consulted, the subject matter experts, whether that be IT, engineering, or outside counsel, and informed was general counsel or VP of legal.
That was an excellent explanation, much better than I could have done.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I will just say, like, you mentioned something that just kind of dawned on me too, because some people might be sitting here thinking, holy crap, I already have enough meetings. And if I have another meeting that I have to go through all this stuff, like, when are we going to do that? And how am I going to coordinate all these people that are important to be at the table? You can break this up. I mean, there's no like it has to we're not the Aura ring that's going to tell you how it has to be done and shame you. um, you can kind of break this up, and maybe it is that you have a RACI with multiple different groups, like Angie was just kind of referencing in her example. And that's a separate conversation. That's fine. I think the point of what we're trying to discuss today is like, hey, get organized, make sure you're regularly checking in with the people that matter, and make sure that you're being very proactive with your approach as an organization so that you're collaborating in all the right ways that make sense.
Think about your QBR like couples therapy, like
Oh
proactive couples
gosh.
therapy. Okay, but like, what about vendors? Because they can really be a great resource. Yeah, okay, Brie and I both prefer vendors, whatever, you know. But truly, they're a great resource because they've got their eyes on the entire industry, right? They're seeing a different cross section of the industry than you are, and it's part of their business plan to keep tabs on what's trending, how companies are solving problems. And so one thing that kept coming up, like especially when I was in house, which was how to get the most out of our partners during that process. And I think I've got a couple tips for this. So, number one, give them a seat at the table. The vendors are going to come prepared with data because they are invested in keeping your business. So, invite them in. They're going to be a great workflow. They also often employ subject matter experts as well. And so, tell them what your struggles are, what your workflows are, because they might have really valuable input on how you can improve those.
Hey, when I was in house, I relied heavily on my vendors to help me with industry insights because all I know is what's happening in my own organization and what I hear from my besties, or what we talk about at ASET's happy hour, like I don't have my eye on the industry as a whole in the same way that the vendors do. And it's okay to lean on them. I think it feels icky when you're in house to always have to include a vendor because you're like, ugh, I don't want them to have to bring lunch because then they're going to make me look at their legal hold or whatever it is. And then I'm going to feel obligated. And then we're going to have like this awkward breakup situation. It's not like that. And, if you have a good vendor, like, of course, Angie and I are, hello,
Oh, we're the
um,
best.
the best, um, then we're going to, we're doing this from a place of care for our entire industry. If I can help you grow, be better, help your team be more efficient, that is worth it for me in the end. If you use my company to do that, great, fantastic, win-win for all of us. If you don't, that's still a win. And that's the whole point of this and pulling in your vendors, I think, is maybe that's worth saying. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I love that point. Because, yeah, I think, it can feel like it's going to turn into a sales pitch or something, but it really doesn't have to be. I mean, now that I'm on the sales side, it's like, yeah, no, sometimes just like being a valuable partner is
Right.
in and of itself, the sales pitch without anything like aside. All right. So tip number 1 is give them a seat at the table. Tip number 2, ask their advice and use their tools. So your trusted partner is equipped to help corporations see the ROI of their investment, right? And help them create the most efficient and most cost-effective solutions possible. Now, this is not going to be true of every single project manager, every single salesperson, every single vendor. But by and large, if you think about their motivations, they're motivated to keep your business. They're motivated to demonstrate to you why they are valuable. So take advantage of that. It'll make you look like a rock star too when you turn
Heck
around and
yeah.
give them this data and this in your QBRs.
I'll tell you what, when I had to go sell my general counsel on buying new eDiscovery tools, I really relied on my vendor to help me build that return on investment. I need ROI calculators, whatever needed to happen to be busted out because I wanted to walk into that office and say, this is exactly what we're going to buy. This is the problem it's going to solve. This is the value that I can put a quantifiable, money mark on. It's not free math. And
We
it's
saved $100,000 million.
duh. So it's very helpful.
I love it.
All right, we've covered the content of the QBR, the metrics, and the collaborations involved. Just to summarize, here are our final quick tips to glow up your business review. Number 1, stay in line. Remember, as you create your own metrics, priorities, and objectives, to consider the company's overall goals and KPIs. Number 2, the more the merrier. Include all the internal and external parties, if your business review has to span across a couple of different meetings, that's okay. You want to make sure that you have purposeful time set aside for all the parties that are involved to get together, put their noggins together, and come up with the best workflows, the best way to share tools and resources, the best way to budget and problem solve and close those risk gaps. Make it fun. That's a tip. Everybody appreciates collaboration that's meaningful, but make sure you also allow equal time for involvement by parties and serve something like a lunch. Follow up with a happy hour. Throw in there a cookie competition or something in the middle of it. Yes, everything in my life revolves around cookies. And by the way, your vendors are a great resource to make this happen. We love to bring together community and provide those opportunities. So have a good excuse for just a fun team moment where you can collaborate, relax, and try to solve some problems together in a fun way. Finally, be purposeful. Nothing's worse than a meeting without formal steps. Make sure to summarize the plan, assign tasks, and keep the momentum going. QBRs aren't necessarily about proving that you worked. They're about deciding what you're doing next and what you're not.
Okay. Well, I think that's all the time we have today, folks. So thank you so much for joining us on eDiscovery Chicks. We hope you learned something new, felt empowered, or just had some fun. Join the flock by following us on LinkedIn and Instagram, and check out our website, eDiscoveryChicks.com. If you loved this episode, share it with your network, leave us a review, or tag us on our socials. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Bye.
Bye. The views we've expressed today are the eDiscovery Chicks views and don't necessarily represent the views of our employers, partners, or clients. The podcast is available solely for educational purposes to provide general information about eDiscovery principles and not to provide legal advice to any specific situation. It is not a substitute for legal advice from a lawyer you retained or who has agreed to represent you.